Daniel, hello and welcome to TVP World. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. So we saw there some pictures of food aid being dropped into Gaza. Can you give us an overview, please, of the aid situation in Gaza, both in the north and the south, and what the obstacles are to the free passage of aid?
So the last numbers are just over the weekend, 205 trucks have entered the Gaza Strip. There are more on the way daily. They have been inspected by the IDF teams, and there are no limitations on the quantity, to my knowledge, of trucks to get in. According to some numbers, not all of the aid trucks have been collected by UN agencies within the Gaza Strip, and are being awaiting to being distributed.
Okay, so they're coming in through the border with Israel or the border with Egypt?
They're coming in Kerem Shalom, which is a passage with Israel, from Israel territory, and there was a new passage that was opened also from the north that was not opened before the war has erupted. And now there's also a new passage with coordination with European countries of a pier being built with U.S. cooperation as well, with aid coming in by sea from Cyprus.
Okay, so aid is coming in. What then is the reason for United Nations representatives warning of a famine in the north?
The reasons and the way the UN has led their messaging since the beginning of the war is not much of a surprise for us. The UN has always had a very controversial line towards the situation here. One thing to very easily point out is that we've seen a lot of allegations proven true of UNRWA being a part of October 7th, UNRWA staff. So the allegations brought back by the UN are wrong and are fake, because we can see the trucks coming in, and I would welcome anybody who would want to see to simply go there and see all the aid that has been allowed in. And let's put it simply, war is not a beautiful thing. War has casualties. And if we don't want war, we should strive for a dialogue and strive for a better solution. But there was a ceasefire on October 6th. And since the war has erupted, Israel has allowed more aid to come in in comparison than before the war has started. And I don't know any other country that allows aid through its sovereign territory into enemy territory during times of conflict.
Right. So that begs the question as to why more aid isn't coming in through the border with Egypt.
Most definitely. Since the beginning of the war, Rafah crossing, which is the border with Egypt, has been more secure and have been fortified by the Egyptian authorities. I will not speak on the behalf of the Egyptians, but they have, from what we can see in the media and from statements officials have made, they are afraid that the escalation and the conflict will kind of spread to their territory. But if aid is crucial and important, and if there is mistrust, let's say, with Israeli authorities, there are definitely other ways for aid to access the Gaza Strip from the south with the border of Egypt.
Right, but not enough of that seems to be happening at the moment. Daniel, tell me what happens once the aid gets into Gaza, because there have been reports that much of the aid is actually stolen by Hamas fighters and then sold on the black market. What can you tell us about that?
So what we can see is that aid is entering from Israel, as we mentioned, and then they are distributed to UN agencies, also the World Food Program, but UNRWA and also other UN agencies. And some of them, as we said also, are controlled by Hamas, and simply then either stolen and brought to the tunnels where Hamas leadership is, or then sold at an outrageous price to civilians that are now displaced. So the aid is not distributed in the way it's supposed to. But that's not for the Israelis to decide. If the UN wants to take control of how the aid is redistributed, I think they should do so.
Right, so distribution under the control of the United Nations, but there is some leakage, you're suggesting, to Hamas. Now, tell us about, of course, the most vulnerable in Gaza, the children, the sick. How are they coping? Are they getting enough food? If not, what's stopping it?
The most vulnerable right now are, according to reports, centered in Rafah, the place where in the south part of the Gaza Strip. And there's aid coming in on a daily basis. As I mentioned, hundreds of trucks a day. And they are now getting aid and receiving support by either UN agencies or even other organizations. The problem is that most of hospitals, as we've seen in recent days, are controlled by Hamas and have been completely under the control of gunmen and terrorists. So the health situation where people need to go to medical care are being hijacked by people who care more about striving to power and unleashing violence than taking care of their own citizens.
What about the drops of aid by air? Is that turning out to be a bit more effective than what's happening at the moment? Is that helping?
Any entrance of aid is welcome. Most of the airdrops were done by European countries, but also from Jordan and also from other Arab states in the UAE, in the Gulf, such as the UAE. I don't know if it's more effective, but I know that in quantity, it's not as much as the trucks that are coming in. If I'm not mistaken, an airdrop is the equivalent of a truck or two and not hundreds as are going by land from Israel. But any aid that is coming in is welcome. We've seen some of the airdrops actually creating some mess and casualties where Hamas, with weapons, trying to steal some of the aid. But the airdrops actually get directly to civilians. So some of it actually makes the intended destination.
Right. Okay, Daniel, thank you. Now, I want to move on to a lighter note. About a week ago, 23rd and 24th of March, Jewish people celebrated the festival of Purim, a holiday. Tell us about Purim.
Purim is a holiday that, according to tradition, is a holiday where you are supposed to get dressed and to celebrate the fact that the Jewish people were supposed to get massacred, and they did not. And then they celebrate the fact that they strive. And it's sort of a symbol, I would say, since 6 months ago, there was yet again another attack that was attempted in order to take down the Jewish people for being Jewish. And what you see on the screen now is a prime example of that. They've been taken hostage, and now there are protests and marches in symbolism of both the holiday, but also to remember that there are still 134 hostages held in the Gaza Strip by Hamas that could not celebrate this holiday. Although all throughout the region, holidays are being respected and celebrated, especially in Israel, where today we mark Easter Sunday, and there's been Ramadan for the past month. And I think one of the symbolism of this region is the fact that we all have different cultures and different religions, different days that we mark. But in a democracy, we must continue to strive for everybody to be able to celebrate according to their culture. And Purim was one of them, as you mentioned last week.
Indeed, and long may that continue. And of course, we pray for the hostages' safe return. Now, I was doing a little bit of research on Purim, and I noted that this story is recorded in the biblical book of Esther. And I couldn't help making the connection with Easter in the Catholic tradition. Is there one?
I think there's many bridges between the three monotheistic religions. There's many possibilities of connection. Esther is the queen at the time that strove to save the Jewish people. And it's coincidentally or not, occurring at the same time as Easter.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. And on that note, thank you for taking the time to join us today, Daniel, and bringing us up to date. Pleasure to have you. Bye-bye now.